coming here, and I think everybody knows Jack McLamb, and let's give him a hearty welcome here in Texas Way.
I'm going to just get in my work clothes here. I feel much better getting in my work clothes, so I'll just take this off. And I just saw 3 guys run out the door. Up against the wall and spread them. I hadn't said that in years. Whoa, my goodness gracious. What a pleasure to be here with everyone. I just love the state of Texas. I really do. And I'm just so happy to be with all of you. I really do. I've had so many good friends, and matter of fact, of the one state in our Christian constitutional communities up in Idaho County, Idaho, that we've been building for about 8 years, the one state most represented up there is from Texas. We've got 350 some families from about 35 different states that have come join us up there at our Christian communities to try to take over this one county with our votes. So all the Christians are coming in that one county in Idaho County, Idaho. And Texas is the most represented. We have more Texas brothers and sisters up there than any other state. So that's wonderful. So we know you got a lot of passion for God and liberty down here, because we've got some of your good folks up there with us, and they help us tremendously. We are so active up there. It reminds me of this group here, because what we've come up with is a concept that I don't think's ever been done before since the founding of the country, when the Pilgrims came over, you know, and got off the boat and told God that they would be his people, and he would be their God, and they would serve him, and he caused America to prosper like no nation on the face of the earth. We're reviving that concept where hundreds and hundreds of Christian families come together in one small area. Well, small isn't the word. The Rocky Mountains is not very small. But anyway, we're together in one county, which, by the way, is the 3rd largest county by landmass in the country. If you believe it or not, it goes all the way from Montana on the east all the way to Washington and Oregon on the west. And but in that huge, huge county, we only have like 15,000 people. And so if you bring hundreds and hundreds of families into an area that all know who the true enemies of God and liberty are, you can do a lot of wonderful things with just voting power alone, especially when you serve as poll watchers, count watchers, and you have paper ballots. I mean, that's the important thing, having paper ballots. That's right. So I feel right at home here, because we got a lot of good Texans up there. And it's funny about Texans, they're always letting you know they're Texans. Isn't that strange? They're a proud people. Hallelujah. Well, as I say on the radio, for anybody that is not able to hear me on the radio, that I'm here today representing some of the greatest people in America. Not only millions and millions in the private sector that are working with us to try to reach out and touch the hearts and minds of our police and soldiers, but literally thousands of police and soldiers who have decided that they're going to help us try to bring this nation back under God and our constitutional republic, not democracy. Okay? And so I'm here representing these fine men and women in uniform who are truly trying to do their best to reach others in uniform and make them realize that as this totalitarian system comes upon these counties and states and our nation, that the police officer and soldiers' children are going to be enslaved right along with the rest of us. And I don't know why. It's interesting, isn't it, that certain groups can't grasp that concept. You know, as they see tyranny coming upon the land, why do they feel they're going to somehow be on the outside of it? It's like the liberals and the socialists in America. You talk to them, and they cannot, you know, they're working for this totalitarian system, but they believe, they've been told it's going to be a fish in every basket, you know, and everybody's going to have the same, and it's going to be utopia. And yet never in the history of man have we had people that run a totalitarian system that was moral and honorable and truthful. and that you can trust. Because history is just totally covered with the bodies of millions and millions of people that trusted their leaders to somehow be kind to them and fair to them under a totalitarian system. And so it's really a shame when we spend so much of our time daily as volunteers working, like me, 16 hours a day as a volunteer, talking to our police and soldiers, and them telling us, hey, this is America, it can't happen here. Sounds like the private sector, doesn't it? You know, it can't happen here, this is America. You're crazy, McLamb. You're crazy. And, you know, and they have no clue what's going on. And so today, I'm going to address these thoughts about a martial law system in America, but I'm speaking to those police officers here in the audience today, and the soldiers here in the audience today, and the ones that are here because they've been told to be here undercover today. And I want to get that message out because they don't realize it. As I talked to a group of people in Idaho County, Idaho, that was trying to bring in water control, because now, you know, of course, they're trying to put water control all over the world. I was speaking in Australia and New Zealand a few years ago, and the police and soldiers down there invited me down, and some of the great patriots in Australia and New Zealand. And they told me about the UN. It's progressed so far in those nations, this totalitarian world system, that they don't call it government anymore like we do here. The government's doing this, the government's doing that. It's progressed so far in Australia and New Zealand, they say the UN because they now know it's the UN, it's not their government directing their lives. Like in America here, we're still lied to and saying it's the government, our doggone representative. But they're serving under the UN right now, we just don't know it, and we're not being told that. But in Australia, they have the indigenous people. In Australia, it's the Aborigine people that the UN is giving control over the water. And in New Zealand, it's the Maori Indians that are being given control over the people's water. And the Maori Indians and the Aborigines really think they're really putting it over on the white man. But see, they're totally controlled by the government and the UN, you see. So, and it's the same with the Indians in America today. The Indians in America are being told, hey, we're going to give you control, the government, you know, not the UN right now. That's hush-hush. They don't mention that. But the Indian tribes are being told, hey, we're going to give you control of the rivers, the streams, and all the water, the ponds, everything, you know, and you're going to really have it over that white man, you know. And the Indians are so excited. They're so excited because finally the white man's going to get his comeuppance, you know. We're so excited. But, you know, they don't realize that they are not sovereign nations in America. They're not sovereign nations in Australia and New Zealand. They're actually government-controlled organizations. And so I was speaking to this group, and I told these men who was trying to help set up this, I said, you know, you can't see beyond this utopian world government system that you've been told and believe in, that your children are not going to have freedoms. They're going to be slaves in this society. And so this is exactly what's happening to the police and military today. They're being told, and I was brainwashed. I'll tell you flatly, I was brainwashed in the police academy. I didn't know it, because when you get brainwashed, you don't know it, you see. And I was taught in 16 weeks, when I became a police officer, that the citizens are the problem in the nation, and that we are there to supervise the citizens for their own good so they don't destroy the nation that you and I love so much. And so you feel like a Cape Crusader. You put on the badge, you put on the uniform, and you put on the gun. I'm here to save the nation. And you're constantly told if you'll supervise the citizens well enough, you can save the nation. And the cops see the nation going down, 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 down. That's a given. You know, morality, crime, everything is, the monetary system, everything is falling apart. Well, you're given the blame. You know, it's because we don't supervise you well enough that the nation is going down, you see. And so we feel good about being the ones going to save the nation, and we'll pat you on your little head and say, there, we're going to protect you. You know, we're going to protect you. And We're going to watch you so you can't destroy this nation that you love and we want our children to grow up in a free nation. So you see the technique, don't you? You see the technique. Our police and soldiers love this country. They truly do. And it's just like, and I say this to a group of police officers, when I speak to a group of police officers, I say, everybody tell me, from your knowledge of history, who were the police and soldiers, who were these people that were shooting men, women, and children in the back as they tried to climb over the fence to freedom in East Germany? Who were they? And the first thing you hear from the police is they were hired, they were the dregs of society, they were the most evil, corrupt people that would actually shoot their own people. I said, no, 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 no. And you'd hear them say this, yeah, they were hired by this evil system to kill these people. No decent police officer would do that and everything. I said, no, you're wrong. You'll study, you'll find out that they were the most patriotic police officers in that nation. But they were brainwashed to the point that they were told that this group of people is trying to destroy the nation we all love. Now, are you going to have these people destroy this nation? And the very most patriotic police officers and soldiers manned those machine guns. And they were so committed to patriotism in their country that they would literally do anything to save that nation. And that's a fact, folks. And you police and soldiers out here, that's a fact. And we see, our group of police and soldiers see the very same brainwashing going on in America today. And people say, will the police and soldiers shoot us, fellow Americans in this country? Well, I'm going to get into that in a few minutes, but I want to get into something else real quick first, because we do have some of my brothers and sisters here in uniform, and we have some out of uniform that are monitoring what we're doing today, and we welcome you. We're so happy that the undercover agents are here. Truly, we are. Because you can't leave. You know, you have to stay for the whole thing. If you get mad, you can't get up and live. You got to record, you got to listen, you got to report back Monday morning and tell the boss what happened here. So you're locked in, okay? No, we truly love the police and soldiers that came out, whether you're undercover or not. We do. Because you're going to learn some fantastic things here today about love of country and love of your fellow man. That's true. I look around this room and I see people of different races in this room, and I'm sure there's people here of different religions in this room. We are truly the microcosm right in this room of America, you know, and we love each other. And so no one is excluded from love of country and love of your fellow man. As the Bible says, we should love thy neighbor like thyself. And I have found for 24 years of working in the freedom movement, I've never seen a group of people in this nation that love their neighbor as much as the fellow patriots that I've known for these 24 years. Because they work night and day trying to awaken their neighbors. They care about their neighbors. They don't just go about mowing their lawns and going to the ball game and you know, spending quality time with their families. Quality time to a family, a cop. I learned in Phoenix, Arizona, I'd always invite my fellow cops to meetings. Come to these meetings, you got to know about this, you got to learn about the Constitution. You know, well, I got to spend quality time with my family. So they go home, get a six-pack of beer, turn on the ball game and tell the family, shut up. That's a night at home with the family. So it would always tickle me, you know, and here the country's collapsing around their families' heads, and they don't even know it. They can't see it. So it is interesting. But to start off tonight, I wanted to share with you a few quotes that are very important to the new people here tonight, be you in government or not, okay? Because these are facts I'm about to give you right now. Cops love facts, right? The facts, ma'am, just the facts. You remember the old Dragnet series? Well, we still love facts today. Cops love facts. And that's why our Police and Military Association is so successful, because we put out to our aid and abet police and military newsletter, Constitutional Issues for Lawmen and Soldiers, facts. We back it up, all right? Police officers see it, they read it, and they look it up to be sure we're not lying to them, and they find out it's fact. And we begin to reach them and make them understand that there's things going on behind the scenes in this nation that they never believed could ever happen to America. this is America. These things aren't supposed to happen here, we hear so often. You're right, they're not supposed to happen here. But let's listen to some very powerful world leaders. And think about these talking heads on radio today, conservative radio, and think about it when I read these facts from world leaders about the Rush Limbaughs who say anybody in America that believes in the conspiracy is a kook. And, you know, these people, you know who I'm talking about. And listen to these kooks here, because these are the words of national leaders, international leaders. Benjamin Disraeli was the Prime Minister of England, and he attributed this statement in 1844. 1844, he said, the world is governed by very different personages than what is imagined by those who are not behind the scenes. Now, what was he talking about in 1844? Well, Benjamin Disraeli was part of this globalist movement to set up a world government system. He knew that he was not in control. There were people that controlled him, international conspirators. He knew that. Winston Churchill said, he's the Prime Minister of England, of course, and he stated to the London Press newspapers in 1922, he says, from the days of Spartacus Weishaupt, Karl Marx, Trotsky, Bela Kun, Rosa Luxemburg, and Emma Goldwyn, this world conspiracy, wow, what a kook he was, right, has been steadily growing. This conspiracy played a definite recognizable role in the tragedy of the French Revolution. I got a spider going to attack me up here. Hope that's not a camel spider, you know. You got a spider going across the desk here. It has been, he says, this conspiracy has been a mainspring of every subversive movement during the 19th century. And now, at last, this band of extraordinary personalities from the underworld of the great cities of Europe and America have gripped the Russian people by the hair of their head and has become their undisputed masters. Now, what was Winston Churchill talking about here? He called it a conspiracy twice, a world conspiracy. He said it has been the mainspring of every subversive movement during the 19th century. Was he a kook? Would Rush Limbaugh say he was a kook because he believed in a world conspiracy? I doubt it. I don't think Rush would say that. And what he was talking about, of course, is in 1917, there was 200 street thugs in New York and Chicago that were trained by the international conspirators, sent to Russia to kill the Russian Tsar and his family and take over Russia. It was called the Bolshevik Revolution, and destroy this Christian nation. They killed 66 million Christians in the next 15 years. 66 million Christians, and installed communism. And the reason they did it is because the internationalists knew that America, a Christian nation, the king, the Tsar of Russia was a Christian, the people were Christian, and they were growing by leaps and bounds, and their economies were growing. Everything was growing like crazy, and the internationalists who wanted a world government system couldn't allow that. They had to stop the growth and prosperity of America. They had to stop the growth and prosperity of Russia. So what did they do? They created an enemy for America out of that Christian nation, killing the Tsar, killing millions and millions of Christians. You never hear about that Holocaust, do you? No. Never hear about that Holocaust. Why not? 66 million Christians slaughtered to give America an enemy. America didn't have an enemy. So here's Winston Churchill talking about in 1922, just a few years after the Bolshevik Revolution had started and the Christians were being slaughtered by the millions. He says that these conspirators are the extraordinary personalities from the underworld for the great cities of Europe and America, and they've gripped the Russian people by the hair of their head and have become their undisputed masters. How can you argue with these facts, these world leaders that are saying this, and not understand that there is a group of people in this world that are powerful, wealthy, beyond anything I can even imagine? You talk about a trillionaire to me, you plinked out my computer. I can't figure $1 trillion. Have you ever tried to figure $1 trillion? I mean, really put it down? $1 trillion? And these guys are trillionaires, you know? Well, the human mind can't even comprehend a trillion. Most of us can't. Now, if you're a genius like Einstein or somebody, maybe you can figure out all those zeros and figure out what $1 trillion is. $1 million is amazing. It's amazing. $1 million. You talk about $1 billion, that's where I leave you. I can't get past $1 billion. But America's going in every hour $1 billion in debt in America every hour, something like that. It's beyond me. But anyway, folks, for the new people here, the people who've been around a while have already heard these statements. So it's for you to understand that Justice Felix Frankfurter of the United States Supreme Court said this: the real rulers in Washington are invisible and exercise power from behind the scenes. Is he a kook? Or maybe did he know something that we should know too? John Hyland, the mayor of New York in 1925, he said this: the real menace of our republic is the invisible government. Like a giant octopus sprawls its slimy legs over our cities, states, and nations. Another kook, isn't he? The mayor of New York. This is what he believed. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, here's a real kook. I mean, think of the kooky thing he's about to say here. He writes a letter to Colonel E. Mandel House in 1933. We've even got the date, November 21st. You can see it in the archives in Washington, D.C. He sends a letter to Colonel E. Mandel House, who those of us in law enforcement and the military that studied history believe that he was really the president, Colonel E. Mandel House. And FDR was his puppet, just like Father Bush is really the president right now, and Baby Bush is just working for Father Bush. He couldn't run another term, he lost the election. So everybody surrounding Baby Bush, look who they are. They're daddy's old buddies. Everything on them, Chartoff, you name it. Whoever, Alberto Gonzalez, he was selected by his dad to protect his son from going to prison. All these years he served him in Texas, he served him, in the White House, and now as the Attorney General. But Franklin Delano Roosevelt says to his handler, Colonel E. Mandel House, in 1921, or in November 21, 1933, he says, the real truth of the matter is, as you know, Colonel, that a financial element in the large centers of America has owned the government of the United States since the days of Andrew Jackson. You think FDR might have known something? Or is he just making this up? You see? So the reason I wanted to start with that, when I know I've got some brothers and sisters in the audience, which I almost always do, that are undercover, and also the good ones that have come here and announced that they're police officers and soldiers and they want to learn, is that you may not know these things. And you have to start with a basis. If you don't start with a basis of understanding there's people so powerful that they control nations. You and I think if the guy down the street owns a bank, and that's what I think, that guy is filthy rich. I mean, that guy is rich beyond my imagination, because I'm just an old cop. I live on a medical pension, a very small medical pension, and a man that owns a bank has to be a billionaire to me. I mean, that's really something. I can't even imagine owning a bank. But we're limited in our thinking. We've got guys like 30 years ago, I read a paper, information paper on Rockefeller, on the Rockefeller family. And at that time, David Rockefeller was head of the family, he still is. Well, at that time, the papers I read, information on the family, said that they owned and controlled 50,000 banks in this nation and the world. Man, how many of us can even realize what that would be like? Owning 50 or controlling 50,000 banks in the world. The Rockefeller family, just one family. And then they went on to say what they own in other industries. And banking was just one of them. My gosh, can we understand, you that are new here? Because the first thing we hear all the time, there can't be anybody that powerful, there can't be anybody that rich to really control nations. You have no idea. You have no idea. You may know or may not know, my wife, 22 years in the Army, got out recently because she was dying of the Gulf War sickness. She was in Bosnia, and she served in the first Gulf War. And they poisoned her real good over there. We lost 10,000 fellow soldiers, and more dying all the time now, even years after the first Gulf War. And now we've got a whole another set over there now dying from depleted uranium, and the delirium pills are giving him for malaria and all. And the anthrax shots are still killing soldiers, and experimental drugs are being given. But my wife spent 22 years in the military, and she's a master sergeant, and she handled the base stations. She was in charge of the base stations of the Apache and the Cobra helicopters, the attack gunships, you see. And she couldn't believe, up until the time they poisoned her and she realized all her brothers and sisters she was in the Gulf War were dying, that the government would ever do anything like that. And now she knows, of course, that they made up these drugs in the laboratories, and these biologicals and biological weapons that they found in the blood of some of the Gulf War vets in laboratories in the United States, Fort Detrick, Maryland, and others. She's deep into the study of that, and she's involved in the Gulf War syndrome movement in America. She's now disabled and out of the military because she couldn't do her job anymore. But more and more of our brothers and sisters in uniform are waking up to what's really going on in the world today. And I say hallelujah to that, and also want to tell you, thanks to you they're waking up. Because it's not me and my group of police and soldiers as volunteers for these 24 years that are reaching all of our brothers and sisters. I don't even know who's out there until you send me the name of a police officer or soldier and a few bucks and say, send them your material. Send them your Operation Vampire Killer 2000, what I was just reading you from here. That's our primer for police and soldiers. Quote after quote after quote here from intelligent world leaders that know of the world conspiracy that's enslaving America today. But in mentioning my wife, I wanted to tell you that she knows that today, right now, the only nations we're attacking, American soldiers are going in and attacking, are those nations that are holdouts to the international banking system of the world. There's only a few nations left. Slobodan Milosevic told the New World Order to take a hike. You know, I don't care what you think about him. He didn't want to be, and he didn't want Serbia to be in the New World Order, and he told them, no, we're not going into it. Guess what? American soldiers went over there and bombed the bejeebers out of him, and now Serbia is under the control of the drug-running mafia of the Muslims. The Muslims took it over, and now the Christians have been killed by the tens of thousands. That was a Christian nation. I don't know if you knew that. Serbia was. And he wouldn't have any part of the New World Order. He's being prosecuted, of course, for war crimes because we went over there and bombed that whole nation into the Stone Age and put them under control of the Muslims now, the drug-running Muslims in that area. So my wife knows these things, that she knows now we're in the Middle East. It has nothing to do with defending America, fighting terrorism, or setting up a democracy for these towelheads over there, here they say, ragheads, towelheads. That's what the denigrating name they use in the military for these people. But the real reason is, if you were watching Fox News 3 weeks after we went into Baghdad, we had a reporter take a microphone standing in the background of Baghdad and say this is the most marvelous day for Iraq because today Iraq went under the international banking system. Does that tell you anything, folks? You see? They were holding out because they're wealthy lands over there, wealthy people. They don't need this international fiat currency and the international, banking control through the international crime cartel, the bankers. They didn't want to be a part of it, but now they're going to be a part of it because we're fighting terrorism. We're going to go into Iran next, Syria, Saudi Arabia, Libya, Lebanon. Every single nation we're going in now because they've told the New World Order, we don't want to be a part of you. We were talking last night, some of the people with us were saying, we wanted to go to another nation, get out of America because America's lost. Well, all the other nations are lost, folks. If we're not bombing them, and American soldiers aren't going over there to bleed and die for the international bankers, you might have a free nation. If you could find one that we're not in to bomb right now, or is not on the list, okay, of our enemies, then go there, because maybe the international bankers don't have control over them. But Belize, Costa Rica, Australia, New Zealand, all those great countries that used to be wonderful to live in, they're all under the international bankers now. These same guys that Winston Churchill, Benjamin Disraeli, Felix Frankfurter, FDR was talking about, and more and more. I could give you more and more quotes that are in here. Rowan Gaither, head of the Ford Foundation, said in 1954, you know, the foundations, the Mellon Foundation, the Rothschild Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, the Ford Foundation, all the foundations have been taken over years and years ago, and the monies they bring into the foundation, they don't pay taxes on, they use to feed organizations that are anti-American organizations. And Rowan Gaither was head of the Ford Foundation in 1954. And a little guy, oh boy, I can't think of his name. What was his name, folks? Somebody in here knows. Norman Dodd. Okay. Norman Dodd was an investigator for the Reese Commission, a congressional investigation committee called the Reese Commission. And he was sent out to interview the leaders of the tax-free foundations in 1953 and 1954 and find out for the Congress why all the tax-free foundations were funding anti-American organizations, the communist movement, you name it. If it was anti-American, they were funding it, and if it was pro-American, those groups didn't get anything from this tax-free money. So Norman Dodd went all over the place, Rockefeller Foundation, Mullen, you know, and none of them would open the doors. They'd say, get the heck out of here, we don't want to talk to you. Well, Rowan Gaither, the head of the Ford Foundation, said, come on in and sit down. Well, I'll bet you he was a little bit, his skin kind of crawled when he said that, because he's wondering if he's going to get up there, they're going to chop him up in little pieces or something, because what is this? He's opening his door and everybody else said, go away, we don't want to talk to you. But he came in, and the office of Rowan Gaither sat down, and he says, what would you like to know? He says, well, we want to know why your organization funds all these anti-American organizations, communist organizations, everything. He says, we operate here out of directives straight from the White House to use our grant-making powers to alter life in the United States so we could be merged with the Soviet Union. Norman Dodd almost fell out of his chair. We have the transcript of that meeting, and he couldn't believe it because the guy just told him the truth. Now, Norman Dodd already knew it, but he couldn't believe this guy just said it to him, you know. And the reason that Rowan Gaither told him that is because he believed it was too late. 1954, you guys can't stop us. It's too late, okay? So he told the truth. These international crime families that have control of these institutions are using their grant-making powers, using their funds to lower the standard of living. Think of today now, folks. Our economy's going down and down. Well, it's accidental. You know, it's just the way it, you know, it'll come back up in a few years. We're just going down now. It's a cycle. It's a cycle. Don't believe it, folks, because since 1954, when Rowan Gaither said, we're going to bring the American economy down to third world nation status so you can be merged in this world government system with the rest of the world. That's basically what he said. We were going to merge us with the Soviet Union, a third world nation back then, and our economy. They weren't bringing the Russian people up in economy. They were lowering America down to third world nation status so they could be controlled like the other third world nations of the world. So with that as an introduction, I would ask the undercover agents here, if you come up and show us your badge, we won't snitch you off. Come over our booth, and that happens all the time, by the way. They say, yeah, we're here working a group, and we'd like to get some of your material, but don't tell our bosses. So we'll load you up with materials, and you can take it back and read it. Because, folks, you hear today from the government have to know that your kids and your grandkids have to live in the world you helped create in the days ahead. It's like when I was in the police department. I now wear my retirement uniform. I was arrested in Phoenix wearing this because they hate me so much in Phoenix, my Phoenix Police Department uniform. But I have my retirement badge on here. It says retired. So I'm not impersonating a police officer, even though they prosecuted me in Phoenix for wearing this uniform at a speech I was giving. I used to go with my family 4th of July, and you cops in here know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. You got that badge. And when you go to the park on 4th of July and they search the cars of all the subjects out there, the people, you know, the peasants, they come up and they say, pop your trunk, and you just flash them the badge. They let you on in the park. It's nice having that badge, isn't it? You don't suffer under the same things the common people suffer from in America. You get pulled over on a traffic stop, you just flash the badge. Have a good day, officer. See you later, buddy. You know? But you're going to not have that badge one day. I'm telling you. You're not going to have that badge one day, and not only are your kids going to live in this absolutely despotic slave society, but you're going to live in it when you don't have that badge any longer. You don't believe it? I've been without the badge a long time. Believe it. You know, you're enjoying it right now because you're up here. Remember, in the police academy, we were told in the Phoenix Police Academy, and I quote, I'll never forget it, most of these were 20 and 21-year-old young people that loved America. They wanted to be police officers. They wanted to be protectors and servants of the American people. They came into our academy class. The supervisors came in and says, you guys are an entity of government now. You're no longer citizens. You're on a level above the citizens to better supervise them for their own good. Well, it feels pretty good, doesn't it, to be above the citizens out there, because I'm a cop and you're not, you see. But within a few years, you're going to be out. And what you created in this nation for your kids and grandkids, you're going to live in it too. I live in it right now, and I'm telling you, I'm appalled at what we brainwashed police and soldiers have helped create, because we've been told that the citizens are the problem. And when we even graduated from the police academy, you don't talk about protecting and serving the people anymore. You're there to protect and serve the system from the people, because we're told the system is God in this nation. Now, they don't come right out and say that, because you'd go, you're crazy. But they infer it all the time. The top authority in the United States is those guys running around in black dresses up there called the Supremes. Okay, and we got a couple girls now too, okay? And we're told that's the superior, yes, God, the Supreme Court is everything to us. And we obey. You give us an order, we just do it. Oh, Supremes, you just do it. You make your mandates and we just do it. We've never read our oath. We don't know what the Constitution says. We don't know what the Bill of Rights says. But we're going to obey the Supremes, okay? Never such a group of immoral, dishonorable scoundrels ever existed, that when you get appointed up to the Supremes, you've proven over years and years and years to the power structure in America that you're willing to shoot your mother for a nickel and take bets on which way she'll fall. You see? Believe me, you've been tested at every level if you're a judge, circuit court judge, you've got your county judges, then you got your city court judges. And if you don't toe the mark, if you will not serve the New World Order, believe me, you don't move up and move up and move up. Look at the man who persecuted Judge Roy Moore, the Attorney General of Alabama. What did Bush do with him the minute he destroyed Judge Moore and took the 10 Commandments out of the courthouse in Alabama? Bush promoted him to an appeals court position. Well, he's got to be voted on right now, but you know he'll get in. He earned his bones, as they say in the Skull and Bones Society. He earned his bones by proving that he would shoot his mother for a nickel and take bets on which way she'd fall. And that's every one of these judges that get promoted up and up. You officers out there, you think you're going to get promoted if you love God and love liberty? Forget it. If you're too patriotic, we've had officers told that. We've had soldiers told that. You're too patriotic. You're too religious. This is as far as you go. I'm telling you, folks, I hear from police and soldiers at every level of government. And this is what they're telling them today. They're saying, you can't go any farther than major in the military because you're too patriotic, or you're too this, or you're too religious. My son's a major in the Army right now. He's been to Baghdad once, and he's going back here shortly. I can't convince him of what's going on. I mean, I would ask for your prayer for my son, you know. He's a good Christian man. And he knows some things. He does know some things, but he still believes. He still believes that his leaders would not do these things to America. He believes his leaders would not set up the Antichrist world government system that's spoken of in the Bible, which they're setting up as we speak. So pray for my son, who will be going back to Baghdad shortly. But you can't get above a certain level today in large police organizations unless you will serve the system and do anything you're told. If you have too much of a morality problem, if you're too honorable, I talked about it in my speech yesterday, you know, how they start you off in the police departments and they test you. They test you. They say, okay, now, we violated this man's rights last night, or this woman's rights last night. And City of Phoenix, this is exactly what they did. We want all you officers that were on the scene last night to come down here to the department, go upstairs in room so-and-so, and we're going to talk to you. So we were on the crime scene last night. Somebody's rights were violated. They're going to sue the City of Phoenix. We go in this big room. Here comes the test. Here comes the test. They say, we want all of you to get your police reports out, prepare your police reports, and they have to be identical. You have to say the same thing, because we got to save the city. The system is God, remember. And if people attack the system, they got to go down. Because, my God, if the system falls, we're all going to be enslaved. We're all going to be lost. We'll have no freedoms. So we got to protect the system from you. You don't understand. And I used to get in trouble for shooting my mouth off about this, but we were told in the Phoenix Police Department, the 6th largest city in the United States, that you may have to break some eggs sometime to save the whole. You have to serve society as a whole. You might have to hurt this lady over here. Might have to hurt this man, hurt this lady. And I know you don't like to do that, but we got to look at the big picture. The citizens don't see the big picture, but we do. We see the big picture, and we didn't want to hurt you, ma'am. We don't want to hurt you, sir. But you see, you're in the way of the system. And the system, if it falls, we're all slaves. You don't understand that because you're just a citizen. I'm a police officer. I see the big picture. Now, we're going to hurt you, but we don't want to hurt you. You know, we've got to stop you from attacking the system, because if the system falls, my children will live in slavery. And I don't want that. You don't want your children to live in slavery. So you see the brainwashing we go through. So we go in this big room, and they taught you this, that we've got to protect the system from the people. The people have to lose if they're attacking the system. So we go in the big room, we change our police reports, and we say everything that every other officer says. But we don't realize at that point, now that's one test. And if you pass that test, you can be promoted. But you got to pass other tests before you get promotion. And you don't even know this testing's going on, okay? They're not going to tell you if you are immoral, if you'll lie on the witness stand, do all these things, we're going to promote you. They'll tell you that. Because you'd rebel, say, wait a minute, I'm a Christian. I don't want to get promoted on corruption. I can't. I have to face Jesus Christ one day. But even Christian police officers go in that room. And they do these things because they've been taught and believe in the system. And the system is, it has to be saved, or we're all in deep trouble. So then the next test is they say, well, you know, Jack, you went in that big room and we got our police department reports just right. Next test is time to testify at trial, and you got to get up and lie. Oh, man, I'm telling you, that's a test. You got to admit that's a big test. If you'll get on that witness stand, raise your right hand and swear to tell the truth, and then lie through your teeth to protect the city from this person that's suing them because we violated their right, that's another test. And there's a mark put somewhere. I've never seen the ledger, but somewhere up top, somebody puts a mark that you've phonied police reports, you've lied on the witness stand, now you're going to be tested again. And there's tests, and then you get to the point where I've gone out on investigations and found out that there is officers among us that will actually execute people for the departments, the federal government. I went to Arkansas, took 12 officers from 9 different states to Arkansas to reinvestigate the execution of a fellow sheriff of ours, Sheriff Gene Matthews, and a man named Gordon Call. I got down there with these 12 officers from 9 different states that I called up, and they went with me. One was even Bud Warren, U.S. Marshal for North Dakota, went with me. And we found out at the crime scene, we visited and took measurements and everything, that Sheriff Gene Matthews was not killed by Gordon Call. It was impossible. And Gordon Call didn't kill Sheriff Gene Matthews. Now, it was an FBI standoff. They had the whole perimeter surrounded with SWAT teams. So who killed Sheriff Gene Matthews and Gordon Call if they didn't kill each other? Duh. I mean, is this hard to figure out? You know, it doesn't take an Inspector Clouseau to figure this one out, let me tell you. The government killed him. And we found out that U.S. Marshal Jim Hall came in behind Gordon Call as he was watching television, put a small caliber .38 to the back of his head and executed him. He fell forward on the floor. Sheriff Gene Matthews, the sheriff of the county, came in, looked into the face of Gordon Call, thought it was the owner of the house, Bill Wade, and says, "My God, you've killed Bill Wade, the owner of the house. This isn't Gordon Call." The sheriff was wrong, but Gordon Call, if you'd put his picture right beside Bill Wade, the owner of the house, they look identical. They look like brothers. They look like twins. Sheriff Gene Matthews never saw Gordon Call, so he looked into the face and says, "You guys have killed the wrong guy. I don't want any part of this. I'm believing. You guys just executed the wrong guy." Well, the FBI called their dogs up, and they put the dogs all through the forest trying to find how did Gordon Call get out of here. We executed the owner of the home. And Sheriff Dean Matthews wants to get out of there and leave. He gets shot twice, one with a shotgun blast to the back, one with a high-powered rifle shot up under his vest, blew out his artery, what's it called, collar artery? Pulmonary, yeah, pulmonary artery. I couldn't think of it. Blew out that artery, and he died shortly after, but we also believe he was shot in the chest too, because when he was taken to the emergency room, the doctors saw the shotgun blast to the back, which only the government was carrying a shotgun in that house. And then the high-powered rifle, Gordon Call's rifle, wasn't even fired. It was when they burned the house to try to get rid of the evidence. Now, we're talking about law enforcement people here, folks. Are you kidding me? Law enforcement officers are doing these things, executing people, executing fellow officers because they won't go along with the cover-up. They thought they had killed the wrong guy. Careers are going to be over. People are going to go to prison. FBI agents, U.S. Marshals are going to go to prison. Sheriff Gene Matthews didn't stand a chance of getting out of that house alive because he was going to tell. We had police radio tapes that went out over the sheriff's radio in the county, saying on the sheriff's radio that they've killed the owner of the house, Bill Wade. FBI goes to the sheriff's office, confiscates the tapes, you never see them again. So, I mean, I was there 5 times investigating this case. We found all the evidence we needed to prosecute these FBI agents, U.S. Marshals, that executed these 2 guys. I couldn't get it into a court in America. We're police and soldiers. I mean, we're police officers. No soldiers were there with us, but police officers. One was a county attorney. One was U.S. Marshal Bud Warren, where the 2 U.S. Marshals were executed up there by Gordon Call. You know, they were killed when they were trying to kill his family. He didn't execute them. He had a shootout with them as they were trying to kill his family, and he killed them instead and escaped. U.S. Marshal Bud Warren liked liked Gordon Call. He knew he was a World War II war hero and was a tail gunner in a B-52. He liked him. He went out to his house. And he knew when he was called up that Sunday and these 2 U.S. Marshals asked him to come along, they said, "We're going to go have a shootout with Gordon Call." And he says, "You're crazy. Gordon is not going to be taken alive." I'm not going. So they told him, we're going to go shoot it out with Gordon. So Bud Warren went with us down there on an investigation. So folks, you know, then on top of this, the reason I'm so strange, I guess it is because I've seen my fellow officers execute American citizens. I have seen it. And this is a big test. Think about promotion. Think about your pension. Think about if you don't do the things you're told to serve the system's God, and break a few eggs. Like I said, we don't mean to hurt you, ma'am, don't mean to hurt you, sir, but you're just in the way, and we got to do it as much as we don't like to. This hurts us, but hurts us more than you. Well, it doesn't usually, but we're gonna have to hurt you to get you out of the way. You're attacking the system. Well, I was at Weaver Mountain. I call it Weaver Mountain. Randy Weaver, Vicki Weaver, you know, his son, Samuel Weaver Mountain, with Colonel Bo Grites. I was there. I looked into the face, half the face of the mama, Vicki Weaver, as she lay on the kitchen floor in a pool of blood with half her face missing. She was blown up by a sniper named Lon Haruchi as she opened the door holding her little baby Alicia, but she had been nursing the baby when he heard Randy Weaver shot. Opened the door as the children and Randy and little Kevin Harris, his adopted son, ran through the door. And Lon Haruchi, this is you officers out here, think about this, that these people could be among us and we don't even know it. Lon Haruchi, FBI sniper, wanted to earn a name for himself. He was going to do something that when I was in the military, very few snipers ever had a chance to do, and that's kill two people with one shot. It's kind of like a hat trick in basketball, you know. But very seldom do snipers get a chance to kill two enemy with one shot. But it happens. And boy, are you a big shot as a sniper when you've done that. I mean, it's usually one kill, one shot, which is hard enough, believe me, you know, in a situation. But killing two people with one shot, Lon Haruchi waited. And he waited until Randy Weaver and the girls, Kevin Harris, was going. And he waited till Kevin got right behind Vicki Weaver, who was holding her little baby in her arm, and he shot Vicki in the head, and he shot right behind, when Kevin Harris ran behind her, he shot Kevin, almost killed Kevin by shooting him through the lung and the right arm. He almost got his two kills with one shot. Evil, evil man. Now, I'm sorry to tell you, my days in the military put me in contact with some of these kind of fellow soldiers that would do anything the government told them to do. I couldn't understand these kind of people. Kill women and men, women and children. Just do anything they're told to do. Matter of fact, strangely as it might seem, I have a couple friends like this who are now out of the military. And they've done some good things in the society. But still, if the government called them today to kill me, they'd do it. They just do it. They don't need a reason. The government called them. Okay, called to kill you, they go and do it. We do have these people among us, and the reason we do is because the very top strata of our society and all the institutions, through this system I was telling you about promotions being tested. Will you do this? Will you do this? Will you do this? Will you kill 10 people if we tell you to? Yes, well, you get promoted right on up. Now the very top of the institutions have the most evil people on the face of the earth serving under, like the Bush crime family. They're not the top of the ladder. They have these international crime family cabal that they work under, but they're trying to work their way up to the very top, you see. And we have these people among us. Now, praise the Lord, there's not many of them, but in the courthouse, the same promotion system goes. You know, in law enforcement, the same thing goes. Now, I never want to make a blanket statement, because you're always wrong when you make a blanket statement. All these people are bad, all gringos are bad, all Mexicans are bad, all blacks are bad, whatever. You're always wrong. You know, I don't care what it is with a blanket statement, usually you're always wrong. Well, I'm not saying every department in America has these kind of people in them, because they don't. I know some very good sheriffs that love the Lord Jesus Christ with all their heart and are fantastic moral people, and they will, I've stopped calling these people that do these things animals, because It's not fair to the animals. I don't know any animals that are that nasty and mean and dishonorable. There's no animals like that. So I call them just pond scum. You know, I don't know, as a Christian, I can't call them other things, so I just say pond scum that grab the taste to the top of the pond, you know. The scum is always up there. But because not every department has these kind of people, and so that's wonderful to know. But it takes independence on the part of a sheriff. You know, the sheriff's video you just watched. Usually if you're in the system, the military, federal law enforcement, state law enforcement today, it's very, very bad, because these big institutions, they've had to graduate people and move them up that will serve this Antichrist world government system. And if you don't serve it, you're not going to move up. Now people say, well, my uncle's at the top of the DPS, the Department of Public Safety, and he's not one of these people. I didn't say he was. He's an old school. He's probably been there 30 years. You could get up to those levels. You could, without being the type of person they require today to get up to those levels. When you have the Antichrist world government proponents like in the White House and in the State Department and in the judiciary today, no, you're not getting promoted up through those levels unless you're going to serve the God of this world, okay? Not the Lord Jesus Christ. And so I just want to remind you that there's some officers back here squirming and saying, that guy's wrong. I know Uncle Bill. He's there in DPS, and they're not like this, so he's wrong. So you're right. I'm not making a blanket statement, but I'm saying that is the reason why today you're coming under such oppression and persecution and prosecution, some of you. Not just persecution, but prosecution. I've been prosecuted. And matter of fact, some of you know that I'm the most highly decorated officer in the history of Phoenix, Arizona Police Department. 2,500 men and women under arms. Well, thank you. But I'm not saying that to brag. I'm not saying that to brag. I said it to say this to you. I'm also the most fired officer in the history of Phoenix, Arizona. I am. And so I want to say to you that we are coming under martial law in this nation. You soldiers and police officers in here, you should know that. What you are being asked to do, you're being told that the people in this room are the problem with America, that they're probably Al-Qaeda, right? You've probably even been told this is Al-Qaeda in here, you know, or all of us Muslims or something. I don't know exactly what you're told today, but you're told that these are terrorists, possible terrorists. I've got the list here from the FBI, the brochure put out a few years ago that show that those that mention the Constitution too often are suspected domestic terrorists. We've got the very quote from who was it, Attorney General Butch Reno. Remember Butch Reno, you know? She coined the term, when Attorney General of the United States, she says that Christians are occult-type groups. Occult-type doomsday groups. That's what she called them. Doomsday occult-like groups was her term for Christians, because we believe in a doomsday. We know God's coming back and he's going to clean house, and there's a doomsday coming on America through this totalitarian Antichrist system and so forth. So Butch Reno, who's just Antichrist herself, said that we were doomsday cult-like people, or groups. Well, if you look in the FBI brochure that was handed out to police officers only, eyes only for police, you, the great unwashed, were not allowed to hear this or see it, okay? But you're listed in there, if you're a Christian, as doomsday cult-like group. If you're a Christian, you're a suspected domestic terrorist. And these officers in this room have been told that you today in this room are suspected domestic terrorists. That's why they're here surveilling you. And the sad part is they believe it. The only people left in America that are standing up for God and freedom are in this room today, and rooms like this all over the country. And you're being hunted like you're terrorists and anti-American. That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, I get the impression, let's raise your hand if you know we're coming under a martial law scenario and system in America. Raise your hand if you know we're coming under martial law.
We already are there.
Yeah, well, you haven't seen anything yet. I mean, you haven't seen anything yet. You know, some of you know what's coming. I mean, it's coming down to roadblocks in the streets, grabbing your kids twice a year to psychologically test them, putting them on drugs, and if you don't cooperate, CPS is going to come take your children, and they're going to be put on drugs. I mean, this is what Bush is signing into law right now. I mean, and our police officers and soldiers don't even know these things. But I ask you that question because I'm going to cut to the chase, all right? Because I got almost everybody in the place to raise their hands. You know we're coming under a martial law scenario. We at our Law Enforcement Military Association know how it's going to come about. And I will put a disclaimer on here, but I'll wait till after I tell you how it's going to come about. It's been talked about by others, a lot of you in this room, and some of the talk show hosts, and they know how it's going to come about. There has to be a humongous terrorist attack on the American people soon in order to get George W. Bush's draft in. He's got to get the draft in this year. He's got to draft at least 1 million American girls and boys this time. Your girls and boys have to be drafted because he's got to go. The international crime lords, who are his overlords, has given him a list of the nations we've got to go in and take over and put under the international banking system, and the next one's Iran and Syria. As you're hearing, the war drums are being beat every day in the newspaper, the talking heads on television. The government is telling you, oh, it's Iran that has the weapons of mass destruction now, are building them. Oh, it's Syria sending the terrorist guerrillas into Iraq. We got to get Syria, we got to get Iran, because they're the next on the hit parade. Well, I just want to tell you that in order to sell this to the American people, there has to be another humongous, deadly, very, very deadly, much more deadly than the last one, terrorist attack on America. And it's got to happen pretty soon, because Bush has overlords. His crime family are like lieutenants in the crime family overlord world government system. They got to do what they're told. And Bush has gotten this list that we've got to get into Iran and Syria in this year. And so how is he going to sell it on the American people? Death and horrible destruction, and probably biologicals will be used this time, and chemical warfare will be used. And it won't be on New York, it won't be on California, it won't be in those areas that the heartland of America doesn't even relate with. You know, when you talk to people in Idaho about New York getting blown up, it's like it's a foreign country to people in Idaho and in Iowa. Well, it's sad, it's terrible, they were Americans, but they don't understand the fear like they will during the next attack, because it's going to be on the heartland of America this time. Because they've got to get the hearts and minds of the people on demanding martial law on the streets of America. And believe me, when 500,000 to 1 million Americans lay dead from chemical warfare or something, you're going to get the American sheeple out there to stand up in unison, not ask their representatives to put them under martial law, but demand it, because they want to be made safe. And they will offer up their girls and boys under the universal draft to their god Moloch, okay, in this next draft. If enough death and destruction happens, we will offer up our girls and boys, our children, to go kill all those evil Arabs. Now watch what happens. This time it'll be Iran and Syria that bombs America, because they're next on the hit list, you see. They planned the attack on Iraq years before 9/11. I've seen the reports. We knew we were going to go kill off Iraq and take over the natural resources and take over that land and control it, put in permanent U.S. bases there as a base of operation to take over the whole Middle East that will not go under the Antichrist globalist banking system years ago. It didn't just happen after 9/11. And this group knows that, but I'm talking to the ones that are new in here. You know who I'm talking to, because they don't know these things. But let's talk about what we can do about bringing America back. I want to tell you, and I want to tell you I'm thrilled. I'm so happy about something that's happening in this nation today, and you should know about it. You are not in the position I'm in to be able to sit at my computer, read the email, from police officers and soldiers who are waking up today. I had another call the other day, and I told about it on the radio, about a young guy that's going to ROTC in college, and he's in the National Guard, and he's just learned that this is a war for oil, and it's a war for these international crime families, and he don't want to go to Iraq. He doesn't want his second lieutenant bars that he's about to get any week now from his college for ROTC. And so he's now gone to his officials and says, I know what this war is all about. It has nothing to do with serving America. It has nothing to do with protecting America, and I'm not going. Amazing, but I'm hearing from more soldiers and more police officers that are waking up at this time as to what the goal is of these degenerates that have control of our government today. And I want you to be of good cheer. This is wonderful news. Do you know what happens when one police officer turns back to God and the people and understands what his oath is he took to defend the Constitution, protect the people's rights? Do you know what a power position that is? When one officer says no to going in that big room up there and filling out their police reports all the same and says, if you guys do it, I'm telling. Guess what? It doesn't happen. It's a powerful position. And more police and soldiers are saying, I'm not going in that room. We violated that person's rights. They're going to sue the city, and I hope they win, because we screwed up. And if you guys go in that big room, I'm telling. And they don't go in the big room. We have soldiers now standing up. We had the one, you know, Kevin Benderman, Sergeant Kevin Benderman. He's in Baghdad. The lieutenant says, shoot these children that are throwing rocks at us. Shoot these children. He says, I'm not shooting them. Heck no. Take my gun. I'll count them. You shoot them, I'll count them. And he's not going back. He's come back to America now. He told us the story of them lighting up buildings. They would go and they'd use their FLIR radar to look in the buildings, and they would look in the buildings, they'd see movement, and they'd shoot mortars in and destroy whatever in there. And then I had a SEAL team member tell me that then the SEALs would go in, or the Green Berets go in and put 2 taps in the head and kill anybody alive. Women, children, men, because it could be Al-Qaeda. And Kevin Benderman, Sergeant Benderman said, they set up the mortar. There's movement in the house. They were going to fire the mortars and blow up the house, light it up, they call it. And the mortar didn't fire. And they were working on the mortar. They were got to kill the enemy in this house up here. The mortar wouldn't fire, and all of a sudden a woman and her children and her husband walk out with their children in their arms. He has tears in his eyes, and he chokes up when he talks about these things to me. He says, I'm not going back. And he's told his officials, put me in prison, but I'm not going back. I'm not serving these infidels in the U.S. government that are working for these international crime families. I'm not going to be a mercenary any longer. Praise God, folks. Amen. Hallelujah. It's beginning to happen. But I'm almost out of time now. I may be out of time. I've been shooting my mouth off a long time. About 10 minutes? Okay, about 10 minutes. Hold on just a minute. Let me finish up here, and then we'll get some questions here. There's a way back. There's a way back, and it's doubling our efforts. I said last night to the group, and I mean it, I've never seen a time in the 24 years I've been a volunteer in this freedom movement, working 16 hours a day as a volunteer now, and not sleeping much, but I have a great excitement for what's going on right now, and I can't sleep. I got to work because there's more letters, more email to answer from our police and soldiers. And it's on my heart to work and work and work. Even if I die working, I need to work. I need to do as much as I can in the weeks ahead. We have weeks and months ahead, folks, to do this work, because the enemy sees that more and more people in the private sector are waking up than ever before to what they're doing and how they're using us. More people in law enforcement and the military are waking up. So you see what they're doing. They're speeding up their system. They're speeding up to bring martial law. They're speeding up to pass the laws, draconian laws, to regulate every part of our lives right now, giving the police more and more power over the people to save the country, of course. You know, it's always to save the country, to save the children, right, that we're told in law enforcement we have to do these things. Well, we've got to understand, folks, that, and most of you already understand, but I want to say this so you know, that we have to double our efforts, triple our efforts right now, because I've never seen the American people at a point where they're beginning to get their personal oxen gored. They're beginning to get scared. They're beginning to see oppression coming from the government. And those people that we've talked to for all of these years that thought you were crazy are beginning to think twice now. They're beginning to say, maybe old Jack McLamb wasn't as crazy as I thought he was. Look what's happening in my own neighborhood. Look what's happening to my children in the school system. They're having death education classes. They're having homosexual education classes. Homosexuality is the chosen lifestyle now. You know, all of these things happening, and all of a sudden our friends that thought we were crazy and told them these days would be coming are now beginning to waken up. So this is a wonderful time to be alive in America and to be in service to these wonderful neighbors and friends of neighbors and relatives of ours, because it is a sad time in one way that we've come to a time of such oppression, and we're coming into even worse and worse oppression, that it's taken this to awaken more and more of our brothers and sisters in this nation. But we're here now. We're here at the door of martial law being declared in this nation, and people are more receptive than ever before. And so it's time to make tapes. It's time to get flyers. It's time to get newsletters. It's time to get a whole bunch of little 3x5 cards made up, 1,000 of them, go out Sunday morning and put RBN Live on a little flyer and put it under the windshield wipers on the cars of all the people in church. So when they come out, they get this little flyer, or a 8.5 by 11 flyer telling them some truth. You know, I have a friend in Phoenix that every week, one week he goes to church, praises the Lord, and the next week he's out in the parking lots of all the other people going to church pamphleteering, putting things under the windshield wiper. Next week he goes to church. Next week he goes out and does the Lord's work by awakening people. And so we need to pull out all stops now, folks, because this is the time. John Statmiller can tell you, people are open now like never before. Police officers and soldiers are open like never before. Critical thinking time. Critical thinking time. Can we bring our nation back? Here's a test. Can we bring our nation back by bringing us back under the Constitution and the Bill of Rights? No, we can't. The founders got off the boats. What did they do? Say, we need to write a Constitution and a Bill of Rights because we want freedom? No. They went to the author of liberty, the author of freedom, got down on their knees and said, God, we're going to be your people. We're claiming this land for you, and you're going to be our king. No king but King Jesus. And God blessed America like never any nation on the face of this earth, because the founding fathers, let me share a couple of these things with you. This is the Achilles heel of the enemy, and they don't know how to deal with this. Their God is a different God than what the founders had and the Pilgrims had, that made America the greatest nation on the face of the earth. It wasn't the Constitution. It wasn't the Bill of Rights. That came later. But James Madison says we've staked the whole future of American society, civilization, not upon the power of government or the Constitution, far from it. We have staked the future upon the capacity of each of us to govern ourselves, to sustain ourselves according to the 10 Commandments of God. John Adams said, our Constitution was made for a moral and religious people only, and it's wholly inadequate for the government of any other. Do you see the Achilles heel of the enemy? They have to destroy God, and our constitutional system collapses, because evil men gravitate to the positions that Christians are fleeing. Christians have abandoned the institutions, and when there's a vacuum, evil fills the institutions as they are today. And Christians are awaiting, we call them in law enforcement, why fight, you're on the next flight. You know, they're hiding in their prayer closets, and they're all going to be raptured out of here next week. Nothing we have to do, let God clean it up. I don't have to stick my head up. The government might get mad at me. So I'm going to keep my head down. I'm being raptured next week anyway, so I won't be here, so heck, let God handle it. Well, we've certainly been brainwashed to believe that God, somewhere in the Scripture, said we could leave the field of battle against his enemies. Nowhere in the Holy Bible does God say we can leave the field of battle against his enemies before he comes back. He said, occupy until I come back. He didn't say up until, 2 years before the rapture or something. You know, he said, occupy, hold dominion over this land until I come back. This is what will bring us back, folks, not the Constitution. We got wonderful patriots in America trying to take over a state and bring it back under the Constitution. It won't work, folks. It wasn't the Constitution that gave us our inalienable rights. God gave us our inalienable rights. If we don't come back under God first, God will never bless America again. Because if you read Kings, I've just read through Kings in the Bible again. First Kings. You want to find out why America's falling? Read First Kings. Israel kept being prospered by God, given freedom and prospered because they served God. And the minute they fell away from Him, they came under bondage, and God let the evil men take over and oppress His people and kill His people. We have now thrown God out of America. 10 Commandments out the door, prayer out the door. Christians, just Christians, not pastors, were arrested in Philadelphia for preaching the Word of God to a group of homosexuals. They're looking at 47 years in prison for just preaching the Word of God. God is bringing this nation down upon us, folks, because we're not doing what Ben Franklin said. Or actually, we are doing what Ben Franklin said. He said, man will ultimately be governed by God or by tyrants. We've thrown God out. We've sat back waiting the rapture, get to heaven out of here next week. Billy Graham's been saying that 75 years. He's still here. And we've let Lucifer take over and his minions. So here's the plan. Page 30 of Operation Vampire Killer 2000 shows you the plan. If we're going to go out and reach people and bring them back to standing up against these evil influences, we got to put God first. I don't want to tell you that. I don't want to tell you that because my heart is evil. You see, I'm a sinner. I want to, man, I'll tell you, I didn't want to accept this. I was a soldier. I was a cop. I was just as crazy as these other soldiers and cops. I wanted to live for Jack McLamb. I wanted to do all the things that are fun, even some of the things that are called sin by the Lord. I love that stuff. I loved it. I did love it. I wanted to keep doing those things. But you have to be a realist. You have to understand that this is sin. And I had to understand these things because I'm losing my nation. I got 9 grandchildren. I don't want them to live in slavery, folks. I don't want them to. I love my kids. I love your kids.
I love you, Jack.
Thank you, Susan. I want them to be free. And I've had to study and find out that it's not the Constitution. It's not you and I just being good people. It's getting back under God that brought us this freedom and liberty. And if we try to build it any other way, we will fail. The last thing I want to tell you is, and this is wonderful, it's a wonderful way to end. You should, and I keep saying you should know. Well, most of you in here already know these things. I'm sorry to keep saying that. But I want to share this last thought with you. Find a place in the Holy Scriptures where God said, if you will get the multitude to serve me, I will save the nation and take my hand of judgment off that nation. He never said that. He never said that the multitude had to serve him before he would save a nation or take his hand of judgment off a nation. It was always the minority, a small group that came back together and said, God, you're our king. We're going to serve you in this land, and we're going to take this nation back under your law. It was always the few. Look at the Revolutionary War. You know, 3-5% fought off the British and established this nation under God of free souls, free individuals, self-government. The world couldn't believe it. So understand that what we have in this room right now could light a fire in Austin, and that will spread and spread and spread to where we can get the minority, not the majority, back under God and serving Him again in these days of horrid destruction that are coming upon us right now. So I just want to tell you, it is not impossible. A lot of us think, man, we can't win it, it's over. It's not true. Because if we light the fire from this room here alone, and you double and triple your efforts when the minds of the American people are opening today to the truth. Now, you won't ever get all of them. Some of them will go to their grave thinking that, George Bush is a Christian, I mean, they'll go to their grave thinking that. And sadly, that's true. But you don't have to get the majority. God always said that He would use a minority, and when the minority stood up to serve Him, He gave them freedom and liberty to go ahead and work, have more time to save more and more people, get more people involved. We need more time. It's going to take us getting on our knees before God and looking at your kids and grandkids and praying and crying and saying, Lord, I want to serve you. I want this nation to be free, and I'm going to give you everything I've got. And so, with that said, folks, I just want to tell you that the saying in our organization is, duty is ours, consequences are God's. God also told us we didn't have to win this war. We just have to be on the battlefield until His return. We don't have to win it, but we've got to be on the field of battle when He comes back in a twinkling of an eye. So remember that saying, duty is ours, consequences are God. Let's just do our duty every day and let God handle the consequences. God bless all of you, and God bless America. Thank you.
Is justified in using force if necessary to defend himself against physical harm, against theft of the fruits of his labor, and against his enslavement by another. Indeed, the early pioneers found that a great deal of their time and energy was being spent in defending themselves, their property, and their liberty. But in order for man to prosper, he cannot afford to spend his time constantly guarding his family and his property against attack and theft. So he joins together with his neighbors and hires a sheriff. At this precise moment, government is born. The individual citizens delegate to the sheriff their unquestionable right to protect themselves. The sheriff does for them only what they had a right to do for themselves, nothing more. The principle of collective right, in this instance, collective protection, its reasons for existing and its lawfulness, is clearly based on individual right. Now let us go a step further in the question of man's right to delegate power. Suppose Pioneer A has one horse. He also wants another horse, but does not have the money or other means to buy one. Pioneer B has 3 horses, and Pioneer A decides that he would like to share in his neighbor's good fortune. Is he entitled to take one of his neighbor's horses? Obviously not. If his neighbor wishes to give it or to lend it, that is another question. But so long as Pioneer B wishes to keep his property, A has no just claim to it. If A has no proper power to take B's property, he obviously cannot delegate any such power to the sheriff. Even if everyone in the community desires that B give his extra horse to A, they have no right individually or collectively to force him to do so. They cannot delegate a power they themselves do not have. This means that the proper function of government is limited to those spheres of activity within which the individual citizen has the right to act. By deriving its just powers from the governed, government becomes primarily a mechanism for defense against bodily harm, theft, and involuntary servitude.
First of all, federal government has no authority to license what is already protected in the Bill of Rights. Secondly, and the power in America is always supposed to remain with the people.
Right.
That's you and me, folks.
You know, 20 years ago we said this can't happen in America.
Right.
Now they see it happening.
Well, they're training
Our
them.
motto is that tyranny cannot come to the door of any American unless it comes in uniform. And that's true, Dennis.
I think that's the most important aspect of being a sheriff, is that you are elected by the people of your county to serve their needs. I think that the people of this country have the great advantage, frankly, of being able to select their chief law enforcement officer for their county and hold him accountable.
Right. Back to the aiding and abetting of this theft by sheriffs who were too limp-wristed to exercise their authority. Really the key in this is for sheriffs to stand up and exercise their lawful authority and quit going around to their handout for another grant, welfare grant from the government.
The simple fact that the federal government does not own all of us and does not own the states and cannot control the states and cannot tell your sheriff what to do. And the issue, I think, is an important one. Are we going to maintain our freedoms in this country, or are we going to allow our own government to continue to crescendo out of control? Right. The issue we were fighting was the one that we had damage on, and that is jurisdiction.
Right.
Does the federal government own your local sheriff? Does the federal government have the authority and the constitutional jurisdiction to tell your sheriff what to do? The only way that can happen is if the sheriff acquiesces and goes along voluntarily.
Which many do.
Which many do.
That's the unfortunate
regrettably,
part. Right.
Regrettably. And I am one who still believes in the best way to solve an issue is on the local level. There's three areas that the Constitution allow for federal law enforcement. Right. There's three areas. And this is on Article 1, Section 8 of the United States Constitution. Felonies committed on the high seas, counterfeiting, and treason. Those are the only three crimes that are constitutionally allowed for a law enforcement authority.
On the federal level.
At the federal level.
Right.
Right.
And they don't.
Back to this, the gun issue, there's no greater evidence that our Constitution is in trouble than it is with the gun control issue. If our government, which is specifically forbidden from instituting gun control, it's constitutionally forbidden. And if you look at the history of our country and look at what the Founding Fathers said about the Second Amendment and about gun control, you will know how far out of control and run amok our own federal government it is. And I'm so pathetically, absolutely sick of my own government being the entity that is trying to steal my God-given freedoms away from me.
Right.
They are there to protect our freedoms. The proper role of law enforcement is the same as the proper role of government, and that is we are here as government officials to protect freedoms. Did you know that your police officers are supposed to protect freedoms? True. Individual freedoms?
Right.
And yet most police officers have been reduced to revenue collectors. You know, write the tickets, write the tickets, write the tickets. And gun ownership is a personal choice. It's not my government's choice whether I have a gun or not. And you know, the people in my county, if they had guns, wasn't none of my business unless they had intended to commit a crime with it. And then people are going, oh, well, isn't it your job to make sure they don't? It really is not. I'm not supposed to go door to door and say, what do you plan to do with that gun?
Right.
You know, do you have any other weapons in the house that you want to commit a crime with?
Yeah, what about these rocks in your garden?
Yeah, and you're not thinking about stabbing your wife tonight with a butcher knife out of the kitchen, are you?
Right.
You know, that's not the role of law enforcement. It's not. And in fact, the book right here, that's a great segue into the book, The Proper Role of Law Enforcement. And this is the book that I wrote so that law enforcement officers would remember their oath of office. The oath of office requires that your local law enforcement authorities continue to keep their oath of office to uphold and defend the United States Constitution. That's what this book is about. It says, no more compromise. If you take all my rights, take them all. But I'm not going to piecemeal my rights away or cut the tail a little bit at a time until the whole tail's gone, and then you go after the rest of the body. No. The answer is no. If it's really about freedom, why would I compromise? Because if I compromise, that means I'm giving up some of my freedom. In America, you want me to give up some of my freedom because we have problems all across the country? But to answer his question, you 16-year-old teenagers or you freshmen and college students, if you want to be free, you have to know the truth. And you have to be educated, and then, after you know the truth, you can defend your rights. But you can't defend what you don't know.
But they still...
What can I do as a police officer? What can I do as a soldier to help stop this headlong rush into a socialist dictatorship, totalitarian system in America? And we said it's very simple. Just obey your oath. They made you swear an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States, protect the people's rights and their liberties. Just do that. And a despotism or a tyranny cannot happen. Enforcement officer actually is there to serve and protect the system from the people. You see, so it's 100% different today than what it used to be.
Well, we've got a shot of these two officers now. Which is which?
Okay, the one on the right is the peace officer that served and protected the people even from a system that had gone awry, in political leaders that would usurp powers and so forth. That person was sworn to protect the people and their rights and their liberties, which all officers still today are. But when you go into the police academy today, you're not trained as a peace officer there to serve and protect the people like the officer on the right. You're served today as you're being militarized, you're being given military equipment, you're being given military training, you're becoming a part of the state, and you actually are trained to violate your oath, and instead of serving, protecting the Constitution and the people, you follow all orders regardless of what they are, and you become a servant and protector of the system. Which is, as you know, about 20 years ago, we threw God out of our system, and today the state is God. So it's very important for the police officer and soldier to be trained that the highest authority in the land today is government, and they're there to serve and protect government, because if government falls, then the people will suffer. See, so there is a lot of wonderful things when you begin to study the founding documents of this country and the law, and the lawful system we're supposed to be under, the common law and those things, is that you have police powers that come from nowhere but the people.
Right.
You see, the people, there is no police power unless you go to the sovereign people. And actually, the way police officers started is towns had a butcher, a baker, and people, the blacksmith and the banker and the school teachers, and they didn't have the time to go and try to run bad guys out of their town. So what they did was delegate their right to keep and bear arms under the Second Amendment to a person called a town marshal or sheriff. Now, that person, by going to work for the farmers and the teachers and the people in the community, had no power to carry a weapon as their servant unless the people gave them that power.
Right.
Isn't it silly today that now the police say the people have no right to have a gun, but we do?
We do, right.
Well, see, it's ridiculous, because if the people don't have a right to have a gun, your servants sure don't have a right to have a gun. But so what we have is also they have learned that to protect themselves, bureaucrats and appointed officials or elected officials to protect themselves, they've come up with this plan to incorporate the state, to incorporate the cities, you see, and towns. And once you do that under corporate law, a corporation cannot have an army, an armed army to go out and deal with the citizenry.
Right.
It can't happen in corporate law. So really, your only lawful law enforcement person constitutionally is the county sheriff that is voted in by the people. So your state police is a corporate army. Your city police are corporate armies that under the law, corporate law, aren't allowed to be an army and be armed. So it's interesting, but we're learning a lot. You know, and so that's why the sheriff can honestly say, I am the only lawful law enforcement person in this whole county. And if the state police come in and try to usurp his powers and do things, the sheriff can say, no, you're not going to do that in my county. If the federal officers come in and try to usurp the jurisdiction of the county sheriff, he can say, just like Dave Mattis, Sheriff Dave Mattis in Montana said, no, you come into my federal compliance office that I just set up in the county sheriff's office, and you show your paperwork, and if what you're doing is moral and lawful, then I'll help you do it. If not, get out of the county. And so we're learning a lot about the way it should be under the law. And all we're doing is talking about upholding the law.
So a sheriff that really does have man parts,
he
could
has
stop
power,
this.
tremendous
He
power
could
that the
stop
people
this.
have delegated to him. That's right. He could stop this kind of tyranny.
even today.
And
I mean, we've
right
got...
now today,
I mean,
we don't have the knowledge and what we can do while it's still not to a point of violent revolution, which is coming. Because as the government becomes more and more abusive and oppressive, it always happens that somewhere the people that are being oppressed and abused will finally stand up and fight. Now, we don't, any of us want that,
No.
because I've got a lot of wonderful brothers and sisters in uniform that don't know that they're violating people's rights and they're causing this oppression, and we need time to educate them, just like we need time to educate the private citizen, so that we can stand up in unison nonviolently and redress our grievances in a nonviolent fashion with our government leaders and take back control. But it's education.
It's
is
education,
where we're
but
at
how do we
this
get our
time.
government leaders to even listen to us?
Well, they
as
listen.
of right now,
Yes.
there's not much of that going on.
Well, we need to take back the counties, and that's something that you and I talked about. Do not participate in the fraud of electing Huey, Dewey, or Louie as your president, because they're all the same.
Right.
The ones that have millions and millions of dollars behind them to get elected are their guys. So it's a fool's game to spend your wealth, your time, and energies electing their guys to Washington when you can take over your county and you can vote in people in your county that will uphold the 10th Amendment and protect you from federal encroachments on your rights and your property, state encroachment on your rights and property, by putting people that love God and love the Constitution and understand how we've gotten where we are and how to recover the system in those offices in the county. The most powerful office in the land is county elections.
Right.
Because it's closest to the people, too.
And it's...
Yes. We do this daily. We educate our police and soldiers, and we get many hateful letters from our brothers and sisters in uniform, too, where they'll say nasty things. You guys are revolutionaries. You guys are anti-government. But I love the letters that always end and say, if this is true, prove it. Because, of course, we can.
Sure.
We've got 17 filing cabinets, not drawers, cabinets filled with every bit of documentation to prove to any hard-headed police officer or soldier or any private citizen exactly the facts and the evidence to prove everything that you've said on this show and that we say in our publications. Every day, Dennis, I say, praise God Almighty that we have more police and soldiers realizing, like we didn't 20 years ago, that we, by violating people's rights, by doing everything government tells us to do, usurping the power and the rights of the people to government, we are building a socialist slave system for my 3 kids and 7 grandkids.
Yeah.
And so many police and soldiers today are seeing that and saying, wait a minute, I know I want my pension. I know that I should sit down, be quiet, and not make waves, and I should do exactly what I'm told because I might lose my pension or I might be persecuted and ostracized. But they balance the freedom of their own children and their posterity to standing up and speaking out, and guess what? They find that it's, of course, their choice to stand up and speak out against despotism and usurpation of the people's rights.
Right.
So this is a wonderful time to see many joining us today that didn't 10 years ago because they couldn't see that this can happen in America.
Well, it is happening. The office of sheriff, shire reeve. Now, shire reeve is keeper of the county, Old English.
In Britain 1,000 years ago, the sheriff was called the shire reeve, or the keeper of the county.
Keeper of the county. Okay, the office of sheriff, shire reeve, characterized in Anderson on sheriffs, coroners, and constables as one of the oldest offices known to the common law system of jurisprudence, originated in medieval England. The office is certainly the oldest county office in the United States, even older than the position of Justice of the Peace, with over 1,000-year history. The office is truly a constitutional and common law office. There we are. It originated out of common law. And so what you're saying is, if they elect you, you need to find out what they want and provide that. That's your job, is to provide what they need.
Absolutely, and certainly to protect, and certainly to protect their property and their rights and those various things that the sheriff should be doing.
What happened here is so unusual. This man was elected 5 times, and correct me if I'm wrong, stood up, raised his right hand, swore an oath to the Constitution of the United States and the state of Nevada to protect against all enemies, foreign and domestic, as do all sheriffs that are elected into office. But you took it a step further. You actually do it.
Oh, yes.
That's the difference. Because, like I say, I've read the Constitution, and I've watched what a lot of sheriffs have done or not done, and they do not uphold that oath. They do not uphold the oath to defend the Constitution of the United States or the Constitution of the state of Nevada. But you're doing it, and you're not really appreciated for your talents by outside government agencies, are you?
No, I think that I'm looked at as somewhat of a rabble-rouser, or a person, a malcontent, maybe by some of the federal agencies. And that's not to say all of them either, to be absolutely fair. But certainly I'm looked at with disdain by some of those federal agencies, particularly those administrative kind of agencies.
But that's because you obey the law and you force them to obey the law. Is that it?
Well, yes, and moreover, I take the side of my constituents, the people who have provided me with my living for many years in Eureka County, have been good enough to allow me to do the work that I like to do, and I'll stand up to anyone in order to protect those folks.
Their rights.
And their rights. Certainly.
Right. And it was in, I guess, the crime bill where was signed not too long ago, where they're going to put 1,000 or 100,000 new cops on the street. The federal government's going to provide. Well, give me your insight on that, or give them your insight.
I think what I have to say about that, it's noble to say that we're going to provide 100,000 more police officers in the United States, and there are certainly communities who need that help. There aren't enough police officers in a lot of places. Fortunately, we don't have that situation in Eureka County. But what my concern is, in regard to that, is that that's done through block grants, et cetera. And so the federal government gets a lot of money together and they throw it at the problem, which they're kind of famous for doing. Each time, or each one of those police officers now is tied to that federal money. And my concern is that each time that a law enforcement administrator like myself takes federal dollars, and frankly, I don't take any federal money in regard to those kind of functions, to financing salaries for police officers, because it places me in a position of having to, better yet, it places the federal government in a position to dictate the policy for my office to me. And that takes away that accountability that I have to my constituents, to the folks that elected me to office several times. And I don't think that the bureaucrats in Washington have the knowledge or the wisdom to administer law enforcement in Eureka County. Frankly, the bottom line, of the people of the various counties, and the people of Eureka County particularly, of losing that control and having then no recourse in regard to their destiny. In terms of who are they going to hold accountable? Some bureaucrat in Washington? We know that doesn't work. The bureaucrats aren't responsible to anyone, frankly. I go right to the very first book of laws that was written in the state of Nevada for the territory in 1861. And I go to the very first paragraph of the very first paragraph that absolutely adopts the common law in the state of Nevada.
Right. And I'd like to read it because it's there. And I will read it. It says, even Chapter 1, Section 1 of the laws of the territory of Nevada in the very first paragraph reads, the common law of England, so far as it is not repugnant to or inconsistent with the Constitution or laws of the United States or the laws of the territory of Nevada, shall be the rule of decision in all courts of this territory. Furthermore, the laws of the territory of Nevada were subsequently ratified by the first Nevada legislature and remain in full force and effect today. This says Nevada is under common law.
And I didn't just write that. That is absolutely an excerpt from it, and that's quotes verbatim what the very first paragraph of the laws of the territory of Nevada. Nevada wasn't even a state. The territory of Nevada. The very first paragraph says that Nevada adopts the British or the English common law. And truly, the sheriff is a common law officer. You'll find him, as we discussed earlier, provided for nowhere in the United States Constitution or the Constitution of the state of Nevada. His authority is assumed under the common law.
This is
one of the reasons that has happened, and one of the reasons, in fact, it's the underlying reason why we have so much chaos throughout the state of Nevada on this issue. Why people's property is being stolen right and left. And not only here, but in other states throughout the West, too. Why the BLM and the Forest Service are running over people right and left. The fundamental reason why that's happening is because we have a virtual total breakdown in the exercise of lawful jurisdiction by the state and the subdivisions, the counties.
right.
We have sheriffs, and just like in the Raymond Yall case, you have a sheriff that any way you want to slice that, and a brand department aiding and abetting the theft.
That's right.
Now, this is a total breakdown of any lawful structure in the state. I want to go back to. And that goes back to the aiding and abetting of this theft by sheriffs who were too limp-wristed to exercise their authority.
That's right.
DAs that take a powder when something like this comes down. You know, when Ben Colvin's cattle were stolen here a few months ago,
Yes.
and we looked around for the sheriff and the district attorney in Nye County, you know where they were? Fishing in Alaska until things
really?
quieted down. Now, when you've got those kind of people in elected office, you're going to have cases. I asked my sheriff, I said, if you took the same position with the bank over here across the street that you've taken with the livestock industry here in the county, and if you let it be known that a certain class of people could rob that bank anytime they wanted to,
right.
how long do you think it'd be till it was robbed? And robbed repeatedly. It's aiding and abetting the crime.
Exactly.
And as long as you have sheriffs that, again, are too limp-wristed to exercise their lawful jurisdiction and authority. I know here several years ago, I was asked to speak to the Western States Association of Sheriffs and Chiefs of Police. And there was a sheriff from one of the Nevada counties came up to me and he said, I'm having all this trouble with the Forest Service, this, that, something else. And I listened to him and I said, well, what you're going to have to do is exercise your lawful jurisdiction. You have the jurisdiction. You're the chief law enforcement officer in the county. The Forest Service has no law enforcement authority. You need to understand that and let them know it. That'll take care of your problem.
Right.
You know, he would never do that. He never would do it. The end result was the stealing of Raymond Yowell's cattle. Okay? And where we have seen sheriffs that do nothing more than send them a simple letter and say, boys, I'm the sheriff. I'm the chief law enforcement officer in this county. And there's not going to be any impoundments, any theft of property on your part. If any of that is done, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it with a lawful court order or warrant. And if you have a problem in this county, you come to us with a court order or warrant, we'll serve it for you. But
Yeah.
don't you go around acting like law enforcement officers, because you're not. And where we've had sheriffs do that, such as Clark County, such as Owyhee County in southern Idaho, and there's some in Utah, there's one in Wyoming, one up in Wyoming where the sheriff put him in chains, took it to the 10th Circuit to get him, and the 10th Circuit upheld him and said he did just what he had the right to do.
Right.
So if we can put people in office or get these ones in office to stiffen their backbone enough to exercise their lawful authority, this stuff will end.
Right.
Because where the sheriff stands up, this stuff ends.
Sheriff, evidently in Utah, there was a little lady that had her cattle seized by these same yahoos. The sheriff went down there and loaded up her cattle, drove them back home to her ranch, and they never messed with her no more. So again, part of the solution is for these local guys to stand up and be what we pay them to be.
You know, that is so true. Because really the key in this is for sheriffs to stand up and exercise their lawful authority and quit going around to their handout for another grant, welfare grant from the government. And there is no such thing as free money. Every time you take one of those grants, there's strings attached. And so many of these sheriffs have taken so many handouts that they are absolutely compromised and paralyzed as far as doing what they were elected to do.
There is no...
This is evil. And I have to remember back in 1843 when Alexis de Tocqueville came to America. And he said, you know, I looked for the greatness of America. What was the secret to her greatness? And he went through several things. He looked at her Congress. He looked at her great ships and trains in commerce. He looked at the agricultural fields. He looked at the justice, the courts. But it wasn't until he went in the churches. And he understood then that America was great because America is good. But then he said, when America ceases to be good, America will cease to be great. And you know, it's up to every single one of us, not the government, not your congressman, not your sheriff. We can't even depend on them anymore. But it's up to us to take that stand and fight for our own rights
We have to.
and the rights of each other.